The starship glided silently through the glittering expanse of space, its polished hull reflecting distant stars. Inside, Captain Elias Harper stood in the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were steady, calm, yet alert, scanning the approaching world. They had traveled for months to reach the Zyrathian Empire, a civilization known for its unmatched technology and rigid sense of superiority. Elias' mission was clear: demonstrate the value of humanity and secure an alliance, yet even he could not predict the reception awaiting him. When the ship landed in the sprawling capital city, the humans were greeted not by welcoming smiles but by curious, scrutinizing eyes. Zyrathians towered over them, their skin shimmering in metallic hues that shifted with the light. Their movements were precise, their voices musical yet commanding. From the first glance, the humans felt the weight of centuries of tradition and pride pressing down on them. The palace loomed ahead, its spires stretching toward the sky like silver daggers, reflecting the cold brilliance of the sun. Inside its massive doors waited the one who would judge them most harshly: Princess Lyra, heir to the empire and master of sharp words. Elias stepped from the shuttle, wearing the standard exosuit of his command, a functional, gleaming armor designed for protection and efficiency. It wasn't flashy, it didn't need to be. He walked with a quiet confidence that came from years of experience, his every step measured. Behind him, the human delegation followed, their expressions a mixture of awe and nervous anticipation. Despite their training, none could fully hide the sense of unease that came from facing beings so advanced, so alien, and so utterly confident in their superiority. The palace hall was vast beyond imagination, with ceilings high enough to house flying creatures, floors polished to a reflective sheen, and walls adorned with intricate designs that seemed to shift subtly when not directly looked at. Zyrathian guards, armed with luminous weapons, lined the corridors. Every movement of the humans was watched, studied, and assessed. Elias felt no fear, only a calm determination. He had faced dangers before, though never like this. This was not a battlefield of weapons, but of judgment, of expectation, and humans were notoriously underestimated. At the end of the hall, perched on an elevated dais, was Princess Lyra. Her presence alone commanded attention. Draped in fabrics that seemed alive with color, her posture straight and unyielding, she scanned the humans with eyes that glittered like polished gemstones. Her gaze landed on Elias, and a small, almost imperceptible smirk crossed her face. She whispered something to her attendants, who giggled softly, and then she spoke aloud, her voice clear and cutting. "So this is the human representative? Your armor is quaint," she said, her tone dripping with amusement and subtle disdain. A ripple of laughter echoed through the hall. Elias' delegation shifted uneasily, but he remained still, his expression neutral. He had expected resistance, perhaps even mockery, but the princess's scorn was sharper than he had anticipated. Still, he said nothing. Words could escalate tensions, but silence could speak volumes. He simply nodded respectfully and allowed her to observe him, giving no indication that her words had affected him. Lyra's smirk widened. "I hope you understand," she said, leaning forward slightly, "that this court does not suffer fools lightly. Many have tried to impress me and most have failed spectacularly. Do not expect that mere survival or shiny armor will earn you respect here." His voice was steady, carrying across the vast hall without arrogance. "I am here to represent my people and to show what humanity can achieve. I do not seek empty praise, Your Highness. I seek understanding. Others say strong only because you rely on luck. Which are you, Captain Harper?" The princess's amusement remained, but there was a flicker of something else: interest. Perhaps it was rare to find a human so composed, or perhaps it was the confidence behind his words. Whatever it was, it caught her attention in a way that the previous ambassadors had never managed. Still, she would not admit it aloud. She stood and descended the dais with grace that made every motion deliberate and commanding. Her presence alone seemed to make the room quieter, as if the air itself acknowledged her authority. She stopped a few paces from Elias, looking him over as if trying to uncover the weaknesses that so many humans supposedly carried. "Your armor does little to hide the truth, does it?" she said softly, yet every word carried weight. "I see the man beneath it. I wonder, is he as unimpressive as he appears?" It disarmed suspicion and created curiosity, and so far it seemed to be doing just that. The princess circled him slowly, examining him from every angle. She observed the scars barely visible beneath the edges of his armor, the way his hands rested with controlled readiness, the calm patience in his eyes. She paused and raised an eyebrow. You are unusual, she admitted quietly. I expected you to be smaller, weaker, perhaps fearful. Yet here you stand, and I do not see fear. I see confidence. Confidence without arrogance. How peculiar. And sometimes it requires endurance. A sudden commotion in the hall reminded both of them that diplomacy was never simple. Ambassadors from other planets had arrived, their strange languages and odd customs filling the air with a chaotic mix of sounds. Yet Elias remained focused, maintaining his composure and observing every detail. He took note of the guards' movements, the way the princess reacted to each interaction, and the subtle power dynamics at play. Humans were often underestimated in these situations precisely because they noticed details others ignored. Lyra returned to her dais, maintaining her elegance but now with a hint of curiosity in her expression. "Captain Harper," she said, addressing him formally, "I will be watching you closely. The court finds amusement in humans, but amusement can quickly turn to respect or to disappointment. We shall see which you inspire." If Elias could survive the initial scrutiny of Princess Lyra without faltering, perhaps there was a chance for humanity to prove itself here, in the heart of a civilization that had never taken them seriously. That hope, fragile yet persistent, carried them forward as they prepared for the challenges ahead. As the hall slowly emptied, Elias allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. He removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by years of discipline, determination, and experiences that had honed his instincts. The armor had served its purpose, yes, but he did not need it to demonstrate his worth. His strength, like that of his species, lay not in technology alone, but in the mind, the heart, and the ability to adapt when faced with the unknown. Outside, the twin suns of Zyrathia dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Elias knew that the journey ahead would test more than physical skill. It would test human resilience, ingenuity, and courage. But he was ready. Humanity had survived worse than alien judgment, and this was no exception. Princess Lyra, observing from her balcony, could not deny a sense of fascination. The human before her was nothing like she expected. Perhaps she had underestimated them. Perhaps the true measure of their worth was yet to be revealed. And Elias, aware that the first impression was only the beginning, prepared to show her exactly what humans were capable of. The stage was set. The armor, the court, the skeptical princess, all of it mattered little. What mattered was the mind beneath the suit, the spirit of a species that refused to be underestimated, and the promise that soon all of Zyrathia would witness the power of human ingenuity in ways no one had imagined. The day after the humans' arrival, the palace was alive with activity. Servants and guards moved with precise efficiency, and the halls echoed with the careful hum of Zyrathian machinery. Yet amid the order and elegance, tension lingered like a quiet storm. Princess Lyra had not forgotten the human captain who had stood before her without fear, and whispers of curiosity and doubt spread among the court. Many Zyrathians had long believed humans were primitive, their achievements limited by biology and short lifespans. Elias Harper was about to challenge that assumption. Elias spent the morning studying the palace's customs. Every gesture, every rule, every nuance mattered here. He noticed that greetings were not just polite words, but tests of awareness and respect. A misstep, however small, could spark ridicule. Yet he adapted easily, mirroring movements subtly and speaking with careful tone. His human flexibility and quick observation impressed some of the younger Zyrathians, who began to murmur among themselves that perhaps humans were more capable than they had assumed. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. By mid-afternoon, Princess Lyra summoned him to the central chamber. This was not an ordinary meeting. This was a demonstration of skill, a test of human worth. The chamber was enormous, its walls covered in shifting holographic panels that displayed simulations of battles, engineering puzzles, and strategy games. At the center stood a platform where Elias would participate. He glanced at the array of challenges, feeling the same calm determination that had guided him on countless missions. Here, he would prove humans were more than the princess expected. Lyra's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Captain Harper, we shall begin. Show me what your people can do, though I warn you, failure will be met with disappointment." Her tone was sharp, but there was a hint of interest beneath the edge, a spark that she tried to conceal. She gestured to the first simulation, a complex puzzle requiring coordination and rapid problem-solving. "Your armor may protect you, human, but here it cannot shield your mind. Solve this." He moved with purpose, hands steady, eyes sharp. Slowly, methodically, he aligned the components. A quiet hum signaled success. The panel shifted, revealing the next challenge. The court murmured. Whispers spread. He did it quickly, without hesitation, without advanced technology. Lyra raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Ilias had passed the first test, and his calm, deliberate approach contrasted sharply with the Zyrathians' reliance on flashy systems. This was the first crack in their assumptions. The next challenge was physical. A simulation of zero gravity maneuvering awaited him. Floating platforms shifted rapidly, and participants had to navigate through without touching the obstacles. Humans were not naturally suited to such conditions, but Ilias approached it as he would any challenge, with focus and calculation. He observed the motion of the platforms, anticipated the changes, and moved with precise timing. His suit assisted, but it was his mind that guided his body. He crossed the course without error, landing perfectly on the final platform. The spectators gasped. Even the princess's attendants looked impressed. Lyra herself leaned slightly forward, studying Ilias as if seeing him anew. "Interesting," she murmured, almost to herself. "He adapts, he learns quickly." That single word, whispered, carried more weight than any praise. She did not yet trust humans fully, but curiosity had replaced her initial scorn. Ilias had begun to challenge her perception, a feat few had achieved. The third challenge was the most daunting, a tactical scenario involving simulated combat. Zyrathians prided themselves on their strategic minds and the precision of their technology. The simulation projected an enemy force, and participants were tasked with defending a critical structure while minimizing losses. Others relied on speed, raw firepower, and algorithms, but Ilias observed the entire field, noting weaknesses, potential traps, and patterns in the enemy's behavior. He coordinated movements with the few humans present, anticipating the enemy's moves and adjusting in real time. By the end, the simulation concluded with minimal damage to the structure and no human casualties. Murmurs of amazement ran through the chamber. The Zyrathians had never seen such an approach, humans who relied on adaptability, creativity, and coordination rather than superior hardware. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. She would not yet smile, but her eyes betrayed a growing respect. Ilias had done more than survive. He had excelled where many Zyrathians would have failed. After a short break, Lyra summoned Ilias privately. "You are persistent," she said, circling him like a predator studying prey. "I expected you to falter, to be intimidated, yet you adapt, think, and endure. Do you truly believe humans can match Zyrathians?" There was no mockery in her voice now, only curiosity and perhaps a hint of caution. Ilias met her gaze evenly. "I do not claim we are better in every way, Your Highness, but we survive, we endure, and we find solutions where others see obstacles. Underestimating us has been your people's habit, but it is a mistake." His voice carried calm authority, yet not arrogance. It was an honest statement, simple but powerful. Lyra considered him silently. Her attendants whispered behind her, but she ignored them. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I assumed," she admitted quietly, though her tone remained formal. "Yet this court is not easily impressed. There are still tests, more complex and less forgiving than these." She gestured toward the final challenge, a simulation that combined intellect, agility, and improvisation under high stress. "Succeed here and perhaps you will earn more than curiosity. Fail, and the amusement will return." Many Zyrathians relied on automated systems, expecting the simulation to function perfectly. Ilias observed that the systems, while powerful, were inflexible. He relied on human judgment, directing resources where needed, making split-second decisions, improvising solutions as obstacles arose. The simulation became chaotic. Virtual fires spread unpredictably, and structural failures challenged conventional planning. Yet Ilias remained composed. He adjusted, adapted, and found solutions others overlooked. By the end, the city was largely preserved, casualties minimal. The court was silent. No one had anticipated such a display of human ingenuity and calm under pressure. Lyra stepped forward, finally breaking the silence. "Remarkable," she said, her voice low but resonant. She studied Ilias closely, her previous amusement replaced with a measure of respect. You do not rely on technology alone. You rely on something more: instinct, intelligence, determination, all of it. We survive by using every advantage we can, our minds, our teamwork, our instincts. We do not depend on one single tool or device." His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of truth, of experience, and of the human spirit. Lyra remained silent for a long moment, reflecting. She had encountered many species in her lifetime, each believing themselves superior in some way. Yet none had combined resilience, intelligence, and adaptability as humans did. None had maintained composure and creativity under such scrutiny. Elias Harper was not merely a man in armor, he was a representation of his species' unique strengths. Finally, she spoke again, more softly. "You are different from what I expected." Perhaps my judgment was too quick. Her gaze softened slightly, though her posture remained regal. "We shall see if humans truly live up to the promise you claim." It was not praise, but it was acknowledgement, and in the rigid hierarchy of Zyrathia, acknowledgement was the first step toward respect. As the session ended, the human delegation gathered around Elias, sharing quiet congratulations. They had witnessed the court's initial skepticism, and now, after observing Elias' performance, some of that skepticism had shifted to cautious admiration. It was not complete acceptance, but it was a start. Elias, calm and focused, addressed his team. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Our task is not to impress, but to endure and demonstrate our worth through action. Keep observing, keep learning. Opportunities will come." She wondered how far this species could go if given the chance, and whether their adaptability might someday surpass what even the Zyrathians considered possible. The sun dipped lower, casting long, golden shadows across the palace grounds. Humans returned to their quarters, tired but resolute, their minds buzzing with the day's events. They had survived judgment, they had adapted to challenges, and they had proven that human ingenuity was not easily dismissed. The armor they wore had provided protection, yes, but it was their minds and hearts that had carried them through. And somewhere in the palace, Princess Lyra reflected silently, realizing that the next phase would not be about testing strength or intelligence alone. Humans had something far more elusive and dangerous: unpredictability, creativity, and the courage to face a world that had already dismissed them. For the first time, she did not know what to expect next, and that perhaps was the most powerful position a human could occupy in Zyrathia. The stage was set for the trials to come. The court had witnessed skill, adaptability, and the quiet strength of a species that refused to be underestimated. And Elias Harper, standing at the center of it all, knew that this was only the beginning of humanity's true demonstration. In a world that scoffed at their armor, humans had shown that their greatest strength was not in protection or weapons, but in the mind and the heart that guided them. The morning air in Zyrathia's capital was crisp and bright, but the calm would not last. Just as the humans were preparing for another day of observation and diplomacy, an alarm blared through the palace. It was a sharp, urgent sound, echoing through the high, polished halls and shaking the court from its routines. Princess Lyra's eyes narrowed, her usually composed demeanor replaced with tension. Something was wrong. Elias Harper was immediately alert. Years of experience had taught him that chaos was a test in itself, and those who remained calm in the face of sudden danger usually survived. He quickly gathered his team, assessing the situation. The palace's surveillance panels flickered with red warnings. A rogue faction of Zyrathian guards had turned against the royal family. Their motives were unclear, but their intent was obvious. They aimed to overthrow the princess and seize control. The court erupted in confusion. Attendants ran in all directions, alarms blaring, while Lyra barked commands with precision, trying to coordinate her loyal forces. Still, her elite defenses were faltering. The attackers had exploited weaknesses that only someone observing the systems carefully could notice. She realized with a shock that she did not have complete control, and that realization carried weight in her sharp, discerning mind. Elias stepped forward, moving with calm authority. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly but without hesitation, "we need to organize a defense immediately. Your systems are powerful but rigid. We can supplement them with human coordination and adaptive tactics. Show me what your people can do." He moved through the palace corridors, issuing instructions and coordinating movements, all while assessing the behavior of the rogue faction. The rogue attackers struck fast, moving with precision and aggression. Their technology was advanced, more sophisticated than the human gear, but they lacked one critical advantage: adaptability. They relied on pre-programmed patterns and strict coordination, assuming the palace's defenses would function predictably. Elias quickly noticed this flaw. He began redirecting human teams to exploit it. One human team, carrying portable energy shields, created unexpected barriers in the hallways, forcing the attackers to slow their advance. Another team used simple but effective distraction tactics, redirecting light sources, creating temporary noise to confuse the enemy sensors. These small, clever interventions disrupted the attacker's rhythm. It was not brute force that won the day, but creativity and improvisation, hallmarks of humanity. Lyra observed the scene from a high balcony. She saw humans moving through corridors with precision and calm, their minds active even under extreme pressure. She saw Elias standing among them, issuing commands not with arrogance but with quiet authority. Slowly, a sense of awe replaced her initial fear. She had underestimated humans, again, but this time the consequences could have been disastrous. Elias noticed the princess observing him and shouted a command. Position the shields at the intersections, guide civilians to the side corridors, keep them calm, keep them moving. His words were simple, clear, and effective. Human voices carried a rhythm that Zyrathian systems could not replicate, a flexibility born of instinct and experience. The attackers paused, momentarily thrown off by the unexpected coordination and the humans' quick adjustments. Elias used this moment to redirect a small group to flank the rogue guards, neutralizing them without unnecessary conflict. The humans worked seamlessly, each person anticipating the needs of the others. What the Zyrathians had considered primitive teamwork turned out to be incredibly effective. As the battle raged, one of the palace's structural panels began to collapse under the stress. A loyal Zyrathian guard froze, unsure how to respond. Elias moved instantly, lifting the heavy panel and directing the guard to safety. Another team of humans reinforced a critical doorway using portable tools, creating a temporary barricade. Each action was small, but together, they created a tide that the attackers could not overcome. Princess Lyra felt her pulse quicken. She had never seen tactics executed so fluidly without reliance on technology. She realized that the human strength was not in weapons or armor, it was their mind, their ability to think, adapt, and improvise. It was raw ingenuity in motion. For the first time, she doubted the rigid assumptions of her own empire. Perhaps humans were capable of more than even she had imagined. Elias, noticing the princess's gaze, made a calculated risk. He removed his helmet entirely, revealing the human face beneath. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but his expression was calm, focused, and commanding. Without the protective shell of the exosuit, he was exposed, yet he moved with confidence, guiding his team and the loyal guards through increasingly dangerous situations. His presence alone inspired others to follow, his courage a catalyst for coordinated action. The rogue faction faltered under the coordinated human response. Their attacks grew disorganized as they failed to anticipate unconventional moves, while the humans adjusted instantly. Elias led a team through a side corridor to flank the attackers, striking with precision and intelligence rather than sheer force. Within moments, the faction was subdued, their plans unraveling. When the chaos ended, the palace was still standing, largely intact, and the civilians were safe. The human delegation regrouped, exhausted but victorious. The Zyrathians around them were silent, processing what had occurred. The rogue faction had been neutralized not through superior technology, but through coordination, creativity, and human courage. It was a lesson in adaptability that many Zyrathians had never experienced firsthand. Princess Lyra descended to the main hall, her expression unreadable. She walked toward Elias slowly, as though measuring his value with each step. The hall was quiet, every eye watching her. She stopped in front of him, her posture regal, her gaze intense. "You did not rely on your armor," she said softly, almost to herself. "Nor on brute strength, nor superior weapons. You led, adapted, and endured. How is it that your species survives against threats so much greater than you?" She had believed humans were fragile, weak, and predictable. But here, in the heart of the Zyrathian palace, she had witnessed something different. Humans were not the strongest physically, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced, but they had a quality that Zyrathians often overlooked: adaptability, creativity, and courage under pressure. A murmur ran through the court. Loyal guards and attendants whispered to each other, astonished by what they had witnessed. Humans had not only survived, but had prevented a crisis that could have toppled the empire. Elias' team had done what advanced technology alone could not. It was a display of raw, human ingenuity that left even the most skeptical observers in awe. Lyra stepped closer, studying Elias in detail. "I see now that I misjudged you," she admitted quietly, though her voice remained formal. "Your people are remarkable, perhaps more remarkable than I allowed myself to believe." There was a shift in her demeanor, a subtle acknowledgement that humans had value beyond what the Zyrathians had considered. Elias nodded respectfully. "We have much to learn, Your Highness, but we also have much to offer. Underestimating us has been a mistake." That realization left her momentarily speechless, a rare state for one so accustomed to command and control. In the quiet aftermath, the palace slowly returned to normal. The alarm system stopped blaring, the corridors cleared, and the court began to process the day's events. Loyal Zyrathians assisted in repairs, while humans checked on their team members, ensuring everyone was safe and accounted for. Elias moved through the hall, observing the results, offering quiet guidance and maintaining calm authority. The princess followed at a distance, her mind alive with thought. Elias had done more than save the palace. He had challenged centuries of assumptions about human capability. He had shown that adaptability, creativity, and courage were strengths as potent as any technology. For the first time, she considered what it might mean to see humans not as primitive or limited, but as partners, allies, and perhaps even equals in ways she had never imagined. Elias, aware of her gaze, allowed himself a small, controlled smile. He did not boast, did not gloat. He simply knew that humans had demonstrated their value, not through armor or weapons alone, but through ingenuity and courage. That was a victory greater than any material triumph. As the suns of Zyrathia set, casting long shadows across the palace, the humans gathered in their quarters to rest. The day had been exhausting, yet exhilarating. They had faced crisis, adapted under pressure, and succeeded where others might have failed. And somewhere in the palace, Princess Lyra watched silently, realizing that the human before her, and the species he represented, was far more capable than she had ever expected. The stage was set for what would come next. Humans had proven they could survive, think, and lead under extreme conditions. The armor they wore had been only a small part of their defense. It was their minds, their instincts, and their courage that had truly made the difference. And Elias Harper, standing at the center of it all, knew that humanity's story in Zyrathia was just beginning. The following morning, the palace of Zyrathia hummed with cautious activity. Though the rogue faction had been defeated, the palace guards and attendants were tense, their usual confidence shaken. Princess Lyra moved through the corridors with her usual grace, her mind restless. She could not stop thinking about the humans, particularly Elias Harper. He had faced challenges that Zyrathians believed impossible for humans, and he had succeeded through intelligence, courage, and adaptability rather than superior technology. Elias, for his part, was already preparing his team for the next stage of their mission. Today, they were to participate in a series of exercises designed to further assess their skills and cooperation with Zyrathian forces. But Elias had a different perspective. To him, this was more than a test of skill. It was an opportunity to demonstrate human ingenuity in ways the aliens could not predict. Humans had a unique strength, the ability to improvise, adapt, and respond in real time to the unexpected. The first challenge was deceptively simple. A holographic map projected the layout of a simulated city, and teams were instructed to manage resources, protect civilians, and neutralize a theoretical threat. Zyrathians approached this with rigid protocols and calculated precision, relying on predictive algorithms. Elias, however, instructed his team to observe, think critically, and improvise solutions as needed. Humans moved differently, coordinating in ways that were flexible and responsive, adjusting strategies on the fly when the simulation introduced unexpected variables. As the exercise progressed, it became clear that human adaptability was giving them an advantage. While the Zyrathians' algorithms were precise, they lacked the creativity to respond to anomalies. Humans could anticipate change, improvise solutions, and find routes and options the simulations did not account for. Even Lyra watched, fascinated. She had studied countless species, but humans, so unpredictable, so clever, challenged everything she had assumed about intelligence and capability. By mid-morning, the simulation escalated. A sudden threat appeared, a virtual swarm of attackers moving unpredictably through the city. Zyrathians panicked slightly, their algorithms struggling to respond to the erratic pattern. Elias, however, remained calm. He directed his team with clear, simple commands, anticipating the swarm's path and positioning his resources strategically. He relied not on force but on adaptability, turning a chaotic situation into an organized defense. Lyra observed from a raised platform, noting every detail. The humans' responses were not just effective, they were elegant. Where the Zyrathians saw chaos, Elias saw opportunity. Where others relied solely on power and precision, he relied on observation, judgment, and flexibility. Slowly, the realization began to dawn on her. Humans had a type of intelligence that was not measurable by technology or brute calculation. It was instinctive, adaptive, and alive in a way Zyrathians rarely experienced. The second exercise took the humans and Zyrathian allies into the palace corridors themselves. A controlled crisis was staged. Simulated structural collapses, blocked exits, and hostages placed in precarious positions. The humans had to coordinate rescue efforts, manage resources, and maintain communication under stress. Zyrathians relied on automated drones and rigid procedures, while Elias relied on observation, judgment, and teamwork. The corridors became a whirlwind of activity. Humans lifted debris, coordinated movement through tight passages, and guided Zyrathians who had never experienced such improvisation. The rogue simulations grew increasingly complex, yet Elias' calm and strategic thinking kept the human team ahead. Each decision was measured, precise, yet adaptable. If one path failed, another was chosen instantly, demonstrating the hallmark of human ingenuity, resilience under pressure. By midday, the challenges had shifted from simulations to real-time problem-solving. The palace was under attack in the scenario, and humans were required to protect a vulnerable area without relying on technology. They improvised barricades, coordinated personnel, and even used environmental features to their advantage. Every step displayed not only intelligence but resourcefulness. Their strategies were unconventional, sometimes surprising the Zyrathians themselves. Princess Lyra's attention never wavered. She saw humans moving seamlessly, adapting to every new obstacle, thinking and acting with an instinctive creativity her people rarely demonstrated. For the first time, she questioned the assumptions of her empire. Could it be that humans' perceived weaknesses, lack of advanced tech, smaller numbers, simpler armor, were actually strengths? Could unpredictability, improvisation, and intuition give humans an edge that even Zyrathian sophistication could not anticipate? The final challenge of the day pushed humans to their limits. A simulated breach of the palace's outer defenses was underway. Holographic alarms blared, the environment changed unpredictably, and Zyrathian systems became unreliable, forcing participants to rely on improvisation. Elias took immediate command. He moved through the corridors without hesitation, observing, analyzing, and giving precise instructions to his team. They acted as a unit, each member anticipating the needs of others, moving with efficiency and purpose. A section of the simulation required rescuing civilians trapped in a collapsing corridor. Zyrathians hesitated, following rigid protocols that slowed them down. Elias' team, however, quickly assessed the situation, reinforced weak points, and guided the civilians to safety using unconventional routes. His calm leadership and quick thinking ensured no casualties, earning nods of approval from even the most skeptical observers. When the final exercise concluded, the palace hall fell into a stunned silence. Humans had not only survived every challenge but had excelled, using adaptability, intelligence, and creativity rather than technology alone. The Zyrathians were quietly astonished. They had always valued precision, calculation, and technological superiority, yet the humans had demonstrated a type of strength that was entirely different and unexpectedly effective. Princess Lyra stepped forward, her expression unreadable but her eyes fixed on Elias. "You have exceeded expectations," she admitted, her voice steady but carrying a rare note of awe. "You do not rely on armor, weapons, or technology alone. You rely on your mind, your instincts, and your ability to adapt. I have never seen anything like this in Zyrathia. Our species has survived by using all tools available to us, Your Highness. Sometimes that includes technology, sometimes strategy, and sometimes simply ingenuity. We have learned that flexibility is often more powerful than rigidity." For the first time, she truly considered the possibility that humans could be valuable allies, and even equals, in ways she had never imagined. She realized that the armor they wore was unnecessary to impress. It was their minds, courage, and creativity that mattered most. The court murmured quietly, acknowledging the humans' success. Loyal guards and attendants exchanged surprised glances. Elias had done more than survive these challenges. He had set an example of human capability that could not be ignored. The Zyrathians, who had always relied on precision and advanced technology, now saw the value in adaptability, improvisation, and leadership under pressure. Lyra stepped closer to Elias, her gaze steady. "You have earned my attention," she said softly. "Not because of your armor, your weapons, or your species numbers, but because of the strength of your mind and your will. I underestimated humans. That was my mistake. Our strength lies not in appearances, but in what we can do when challenged." His actions had shifted the perception of an entire court, revealing that human ingenuity was a force not to be underestimated. As the sun set over Zyrathia, casting long shadows across the palace grounds, Elias gathered his team. "Today we have proven something important," he said quietly. "Not only that we can survive challenges, but that humans have strengths that even the most advanced civilizations sometimes overlook. Remember this: our ingenuity, adaptability, and courage are our greatest tools. Technology is useful, but it is not what defines us." They had adapted, improvised, and persevered, showing that even in a world that scoffed at their armor, humans had the power to inspire respect. Princess Lyra watched them from her balcony, her expression thoughtful. The human before her had done more than pass challenges. He had revealed a truth that Zyrathians rarely admitted. Strength is not always measured in technology, armor, or numbers. Sometimes it is measured in courage, intelligence, and the ability to adapt when everything seems against you. Elias Harper had demonstrated that truth, and for the first time, she wondered what humans might achieve if given a chance to grow beyond their small corner of the galaxy. The stage was set for the final revelations. Humans had proven their worth not by imitation, but by using their unique abilities. The princess's initial scorn had been replaced with admiration, tempered by thought and caution. She knew that the next encounter would not be one of ridicule, but of recognition. And Elias, aware of the potential unfolding, prepared for the moment when humanity would finally show the full extent of its capabilities in a galaxy that had long underestimated it. The palace, once a place of judgment, had become a proving ground. And as night fell, Elias Harper stood quietly in the corridor, his armor set aside, his mind sharp and his spirit ready. The humans had faced tests, overcome challenges, and revealed the true power of ingenuity and courage. The next steps would define not only their standing with Zyrathia, but the very perception of humanity in a galaxy that had never truly believed in them. The next morning, the palace was alive with cautious energy. Though the humans had already proven themselves through intellect, courage, and adaptability, this day would mark the culmination of their trials. Princess Lyra moved through the corridors with her usual grace, yet there was a new softness in her expression. She had witnessed human ingenuity, leadership, and bravery, qualities she had never fully appreciated. Still, she remained careful. Humans were unpredictable, and she had learned to expect the unexpected. Elias Harper, for his part, approached the day as he had every challenge, calmly, with focus and precision. He did not need armor to impress. His confidence, his intellect, and his presence spoke louder than any technological protection. Today's final challenge would not rely solely on skill or strategy. It would test character, ingenuity, and the ability to inspire others. He knew that the moment had arrived to show the full measure of humanity, and he was ready. The morning began with a simulated crisis unlike any before. A massive holographic projection covered the palace floor, depicting a city under siege from multiple directions. The humans were instructed to coordinate with Zyrathian forces, protect civilians, and neutralize threats simultaneously. The complexity was overwhelming. Algorithms and conventional strategies were insufficient. Elias surveyed the scene, noting that the rigid patterns used by the Zyrathians could be exploited to create new, unexpected solutions. He turned to his team. "Listen carefully," he said. "We cannot rely solely on technology. The palace systems will help, but our strength is our mind, our teamwork, and our courage. Observe, adapt, and act. We will guide others, improvise when needed, and protect every life we can. Focus and stay sharp." They moved swiftly through the simulation, identifying weak points, improvising barriers, and guiding virtual citizens to safety. Each decision was informed by observation, creativity, and coordination, traits that Zyrathians had long undervalued. Princess Lyra watched from a high balcony, captivated. Elias moved among his team without hesitation, issuing instructions with clarity and authority, yet remaining calm. He did not rely on flashy technology or strength. He relied on ingenuity, judgment, and the ability to adapt to every changing scenario. It was a quality the princess had never seen displayed with such effectiveness, and she found herself studying every movement, every decision in silent admiration. Midway through the simulation, an unexpected complication arose. A virtual section of the city collapsed entirely, trapping civilians under debris. Zyrathians paused, unsure how to respond. Elias did not hesitate. He organized his team to lift debris manually, using simple tools and clever leverage techniques. One human climbed to reach higher areas, another stabilized a collapsing structure, while the rest directed the evacuation with precision. Each action was small, yet together they created an outcome that no algorithm could predict. Lyra's attendants whispered nervously. "They are adapting," one said. "They improvise in ways we did not anticipate." The princess remained silent, her eyes locked on Elias. She had underestimated humans before, but now she could not deny the truth. His presence, his calm authority, and his innovative strategies had turned chaos into order. The final phase of the exercise escalated further. Multiple threats appeared simultaneously. Attackers, fires, and structural collapses combined to create an unpredictable environment. Elias' team moved with extraordinary coordination, guiding Zyrathian allies while improvising solutions on the fly. When drones malfunctioned, humans devised manual methods. When doors blocked escape routes, humans identified alternative paths. Their adaptability outmatched rigid systems, their courage outshone any technological advantage. Lyra, standing closer now, realized that she was witnessing not only skill but essence, the essence of humanity. Elias had demonstrated something far beyond the reach of armor, weapons, or numbers. He had demonstrated resourcefulness, courage, and ingenuity, the very traits that allowed humans to thrive in a universe that often underestimated them. She felt a mixture of awe and something she had never admitted before: respect. When the final threat was neutralized and the simulation ended, the hall fell silent. The Zyrathians, who had once scoffed at humans, now studied them with quiet astonishment. The humans had excelled where technology alone could not, solving problems and saving lives through quick thinking, adaptability, and courage. It was a revelation, a demonstration that strength could take many forms, and that the value of a species could not be measured by appearance alone. Lyra descended from her balcony, her eyes fixed on Elias. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Captain Harper," she said, her voice steady but resonant, "you have done what I thought impossible. You have shown courage, ingenuity, and adaptability in ways my people have never seen before. I underestimated you and your species." "That was my mistake." Her expression shifted, moving from astonishment to genuine reflection. She realized that armor and technology could not replace the value of judgment, ingenuity, and the ability to adapt under pressure. Elias had proven this beyond doubt. Without a word, he removed his exosuit entirely. The gleaming armor, once thought impressive by outsiders, was set aside. The humans had already proven that the suit was unnecessary. What mattered was the mind beneath it, the courage, the discipline, and the ability to think clearly under extreme conditions. The court fell silent, witnessing the quiet power of a species that had accomplished the extraordinary without reliance on superior technology. Lyra's eyes widened. She had expected display, power, and reliance on armor, but instead she saw something far more compelling: confidence, intelligence, and presence. Elias did not need to fight to impress. His composure and ingenuity were enough. The princess was speechless, and for the first time she truly reconsidered her assumptions about humans. A murmur ran through the court. Loyal guards and attendants whispered among themselves, acknowledging what they had witnessed. Humans had achieved what Zyrathians had once thought impossible. Elias had led without arrogance, adapted without hesitation, and inspired without force. Every observer understood the lesson. Humanity's strength was not superficial. It was fundamental, rooted in mind, heart, and courage. Lyra finally broke the silence. "I see now that humans are far more capable than I believed. Your species' ingenuity, courage, and adaptability are remarkable. I underestimated you, and I was wrong." She paused, her voice softening slightly. "Perhaps humanity is exactly the partner we need, not for strength alone, but for insight, creativity, and resilience. We hope to demonstrate that we can be trusted, Your Highness. Humans can contribute more than expected when given the opportunity. Our strength lies not in appearances or technology, but in action, thought, and perseverance." Elias Harper had changed her perception not through display of power or technology, but through the quiet, undeniable demonstration of human ingenuity and character. The armor he had once worn was irrelevant. What mattered was what he had shown through courage, cleverness, and adaptability. For the first time, Lyra understood the full value of humanity, not just as survivors, but as innovators, problem solvers, and allies capable of extraordinary feats. The human delegation gathered around Elias, quietly proud. They had endured challenges, adapted under pressure, and shown the full extent of their abilities. The princess had witnessed it all, and now respect replaced skepticism. Humans had not only survived, they had earned recognition, admiration, and the promise of partnership. Outside the palace, the suns of Zyrathia began to set, casting long, golden shadows across the city. The trials were complete, and the humans had proven their worth. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage had triumphed where technology alone could not. They had turned skepticism into respect, doubt into admiration, and scorn into acknowledgement. Lyra watched from a balcony, her eyes following Elias as he moved calmly through the hall. She had expected armor and weapons to impress her, but instead, she had been captivated by thought, ingenuity, and presence. He had shown that the essence of humanity was far more powerful than any suit of armor. Her mind raced with possibilities, realizing that this species could achieve greatness far beyond her initial assumptions. Elias finally addressed the princess directly. "Your Highness, humans may not be the strongest in numbers or technology, but we endure, adapt, and find solutions when others cannot. That is how we survive and thrive in a universe that often underestimates us. Humanity is remarkable." The court erupted in quiet applause, the Zyrathians acknowledging what had been proven. Humans had faced impossible challenges, adapted under pressure, and succeeded where technology alone would have failed. They had earned not just respect, but recognition as a species capable of extraordinary things. As the sun set fully, painting the city in golden light, Elias Harper stood quietly, observing the palace and the people around him. His armor had been removed, unnecessary now, for humanity's true power had been revealed. And Princess Lyra, watching him leave, was left speechless, not by strength, not by weapons, but by the undeniable capability of a species she had underestimated for far too long. Humans had arrived at Zyrathia as outsiders, scoffed at, dismissed, and underestimated. They were leaving as a force impossible to ignore, proving that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could achieve what others thought impossible. And in that quiet triumph, the essence of humanity shone brighter than any armor ever could. The stage was set for a new chapter, one in which humans would be seen not as inferior, but as innovators, allies, and exemplars of ingenuity and courage. Elias Harper's mission had succeeded, and the galaxy had witnessed the true measure of human potential.